Katherine stood at the edge of her family's property, the heavy creak of the gate echoing in her ears as it swung shut. The finality of that sound made her heart sink. She could still feel the sting of her relative's words, sharp and unforgiving. "You're just dead weight." Their faces had been a mix of pity and disdain, making it clear she was no longer welcome. With every step backward, she felt the weight of their judgment pressing down on her. She glanced down at her two children, Lila and Sam, whose innocent faces were twisted with confusion. "Mommy, are we going to be okay?" Lila asked, her voice small as she tugged on Katherine's skirt. Katherine knelt beside her daughter, brushing a wayward strand of hair behind her ear. "Of course, sweetheart. We'll find a way," she replied, forcing a smile even though fear gnawed at her insides. With nowhere else to go, Katherine began the long walk toward town, holding tightly to her children's hands. The road ahead was dusty and unwelcoming, much like the fate that awaited them if they didn't find help soon. She could hear the distant sounds of laughter and chatter from families who had it all, warm homes filled with love and joy, while she felt like a shadow drifting through their light. Just when despair began to creep in, a figure appeared on horseback in the distance. It was Ben Carver, a drover known in town not for his wealth but for his kindness. Despite being dirt poor himself, he had a reputation for lending a hand when others would turn away. As he approached, Katherine felt a flicker of hope ignite within her heart. "Need some help?" Ben asked as he reined in his horse beside them. His eyes held a softness that made Katherine feel safe, if only for a moment. "I saw what happened back there," he added gently, understanding without needing to pry. Katherine nodded, too overwhelmed to speak as tears threatened to spill over. Ben dismounted and gestured for them to come closer. "I have a place, not much, but it's got 4 walls and a roof." With a shared glance between them, Katherine realized he wasn't just offering shelter, he was offering a chance at something more. Ben led them down an old path toward a tumbledown bunkhouse that had seen better days. The structure looked fragile yet somehow inviting amidst the wildflowers that danced at its feet. As they stepped inside, Katherine felt the air shift slightly. It was as if something new was waiting to grow within those cracked walls, a possibility she had thought long lost. In that moment, surrounded by dust and uncertainty, Katherine began to believe that perhaps this ragged place could offer more than mere refuge. It could be the start of something hopeful for her family. As Katherine and her children walked along the dusty road, the weight of their recent rejection clung to them like a heavy fog. Lila and Sam trudged beside her, their small feet kicking up bits of dirt, each step echoing the uncertainty they faced. The distant laughter of families enjoying their day felt like a cruel reminder of what they had lost. Just when Katherine's heart began to sink under the weight of despair, a figure emerged on horseback, cutting through the haze of her thoughts. It was Ben Carver, a man whose rugged appearance belied a warm heart. His weathered face was framed by a wide-brimmed hat that shielded his kind eyes from the harsh sun. Known in town for his generosity despite his own struggles, Ben had always been someone people could rely on. "Howdy there," he called out as he approached, his voice carrying a friendly lilt. Katherine felt an instant sense of relief wash over her. Here was someone who didn't see her as dead weight. Instead, he looked at her with genuine concern. "You folks look like you could use some help." Katherine opened her mouth to respond, but words failed her as emotion caught in her throat. Instead, she nodded, grateful for the understanding in his gaze. Lila clutched her mother's hand tightly while Sam peered out from behind Katherine's skirt, eyeing the stranger with curiosity. Ben dismounted smoothly and stepped closer. "I reckon you're looking for shelter?" he asked gently. "I've got a little place not far from here, a bunkhouse that may suit your needs." He gestured down the path behind him, where patches of wildflowers grew vibrant against the backdrop of rugged terrain. "What kind of place?" Katherine asked hesitantly, unsure if she should trust this man who appeared so well-meaning yet lived in a world so different from hers. "It ain't much," Ben replied with a shrug, "but it's safe and has 4 walls to keep the wind out." There was sincerity in his tone that made Katherine feel hopeful for the first time since leaving her family's home. As they walked together toward the bunkhouse, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the ground. Ben shared stories about life as a drover, tales of cattle drives and starry nights spent under open skies. Laughter bubbled between them as he animatedly described stubborn cows and mischievous horses. Katherine listened intently, feeling a connection grow between them amidst their shared struggles. With each step closer to the bunkhouse, she began to believe that perhaps this encounter could change more than just their immediate circumstances. It could mark the beginning of a new chapter filled with hope and possibility. Arriving at the tumbledown structure, Katherine surveyed its cracked walls and crooked roof but also noticed how wildflowers danced at its base. In this moment, she felt something shift within herself, a blossoming sense of hope that maybe this would be their home after all. As they walked down the path toward the bunkhouse, Katherine felt a mix of hope and apprehension fluttering in her chest. The sun was beginning to sink lower in the sky, painting it in shades of orange and pink that made the world around them feel almost magical. Ben led the way, his sturdy figure creating a sense of security as he guided them through the overgrown grass. Lila skipped ahead, her small arms swinging at her sides, while Sam clung tight to his mother's hand. The rhythm of their steps created a comforting heartbeat amidst the uncertainty. "Mommy, will it be like a real home?" Lila called back, her voice brightening with each step. Katherine knelt down beside her daughter. "What do you think makes a home?" she asked softly. "Love," Sam piped up, his big brown eyes looking up at her earnestly. "And food. And fun." Katherine couldn't help but smile at his innocence. "You're right. If we have love, food, and fun together, we can make any place feel like home." She watched Ben glance back at them with a nod before continuing down the path. "Life out here can be rough," Ben shared over his shoulder, his deep voice cutting through their chatter. "But it also has its own kind of beauty." He gestured to the sprawling hills surrounding them, dotted with wildflowers swaying gently in the breeze. The children began to ask him questions about life on his ranch, curious about cows and horses, what they ate, and where they slept. Each answer seemed to draw them closer to him as if he were slowly becoming part of their small family. Katherine listened intently as Ben painted vivid pictures of sunrise cattle drives and silent nights beneath a sky full of stars. "I've seen my share of hard times," Ben continued as they walked. "But those moments are sometimes when you find strength you never knew you had." His words resonated with Katherine as she recalled her recent struggles. Perhaps this new life held lessons she hadn't been ready to learn until now. As they rounded a bend and approached the bunkhouse, Katherine caught sight of its weathered exterior, a stark contrast to the wealthier homes she had known before. Yet instead of feeling disappointed, she felt an awakening inside her. This was a new beginning for her family. Ben paused at the entrance and turned to face them fully. "This might not look like much," he said honestly, "but I want you to know that within these walls is where things can change." The flicker of determination in his eyes mirrored Katherine's own emerging hope. Standing together at that threshold, Ben gently encouraging them forward, Katherine felt an unexpected bond forming among them all. In that moment, under the fading light of day, a promise hung in the air. This tumble-down place could become something beautiful, a sanctuary woven with stories and filled with laughter for years to come. As Ben pushed open the creaky door of the bunkhouse, a rush of cool air greeted them. Katherine stepped inside first, her heart pounding with a mixture of trepidation and expectancy. The interior was dimly lit by the fading sunlight that streamed through dusty windows, illuminating the remnants of a simpler time. The walls, though cracked and peeling, seemed to whisper stories of laughter, warmth, and moments shared by those who had once called this place home. A few moth-eaten chairs were scattered around, and a rickety table sat forlornly in one corner, untouched by time. Katherine couldn't help but imagine families sharing meals here, children playing in the sun-filtered light that now hung like memories too heavy to bear. Lila tugged at her sleeve, eyes wide with curiosity. "Mommy, what's for dinner?" she asked hopefully. Katherine looked around at their new space and smiled weakly. "I'm not sure yet, but we'll figure it out together," she replied, trying to mask her own uncertainty. Sam wandered off to inspect an old bookshelf against one wall. It was filled with dust and cobwebs but still contained a few weathered books whose spines had begun to crack. When he pulled one out titled Adventures in Nature, his face lit up at the treasure he had found. "Can we read this later?" he asked eagerly. "Of course," Katherine said as she hugged him tight, grateful for his infectious enthusiasm. In that moment, she realized the potential the bunkhouse held, not just as shelter from the elements but also as a canvas where they could paint new memories together. While Ben busied himself checking the walls and making sure everything was secure, Katherine explored further into what could be their living space. A small kitchen area awaited in another corner with a simple stove and a sink that still gleamed beneath layers of grime. There was even a window overlooking a patch of wildflowers outside, infusing the room with a hint of color. Katherine felt something inside her shift. Hope began to blossom even amid lack. This nook could be filled with warmth if they allowed it to be. Suddenly inspired, she turned to Ben and said, "We need to clean this place up." He gave her an encouraging smile in return, clearly relieved that she was beginning to see the potential here. Together they cleared away dust-covered furniture and swept out remnants of previous tenants. Laughter filled the air as Lila pretended to be their little helper while Sam turned it into a game of rescue as he gathered stray objects from corners. Ben joined in with playful banter, forging trust through every joyful moment shared. As night fell and stars began to twinkle overhead through the windows, Katherine stood back for a moment to admire their efforts. The bunkhouse still held old scars but started transforming before her eyes, a reflection of their journey ahead. Rough yet beautiful in its imperfections. In those cracked walls lay not just dirt and decay but promise. Of laughter echoing within these rooms once again and love growing where there once had only been emptiness. They were charting their course toward a fresh start together in this dilapidated sanctuary they would now call home. As the days passed and the bunkhouse began to feel more like home, Katherine's spirits lifted alongside her determination to create a life for her children. Inspired by the wildflowers blooming outside and fueled by Ben's encouragement, she decided it was time to cultivate a garden, a small patch of earth that could bear fruits and vegetables, symbolizing their shared hope and resilience. One sunny morning, Katherine gathered her children in the yard. "We're going to plant a garden," she announced excitedly, hoping to ignite their enthusiasm. Lila's eyes sparkled at the thought of digging in the dirt, while Sam bounced on his heels, eager to help. Ben joined them, bringing with him some seeds he had saved from his own modest crops. "These are radishes, lettuce, and some beans," he explained as he laid them out on a wooden crate. "They are easy to grow and will thrive with just a little care." Katherine smiled at his generosity, grateful for someone who believed in their potential. Together, they rolled up their sleeves and set to work. The kids dug shallow holes with small shovels while Ben showed them how to plant each seed carefully. He taught Lila how deep to place the seeds and how far apart they should be spaced. "Look at this," Sam exclaimed as he discovered an earthworm wriggling through the soil. "Is this good for our plants?" His innocent curiosity made Katherine chuckle as she knelt beside him. "Yes. Worms help make the soil rich and healthy," Ben explained, his voice warm. As they worked side by side under the sun's gentle rays, conversations flowed easily. Katherine shared stories of her past gardening experiences from her childhood, where she learned the joy of nurturing living things. In return, Ben spoke of his dreams for the ranch, revealing a side of himself that was passionate and hopeful. Hours slipped by unnoticed as they planted row after row, laughter echoing around them like music in the air. Once they finished planting, Katherine looked out over their handiwork. The neat rows of soil with tiny markers indicating what had been planted was like a promise hanging in the air. "Now we wait," Ben said with a smile, wiping sweat from his brow. "But remember, taking care of them is just as important as planting." Katherine nodded, feeling empowered by their collective effort. This garden wasn't merely about growing food, it was about nurturing life together and fostering bonds that would strengthen their family unit in ways she hadn't anticipated. As evening approached and they admired their day's labor beneath the setting sun, its golden light bathing everything in warmth, Katherine felt a sense of belonging swell within her chest. They were no longer just survivors but a team dedicated to cultivating a brighter future together. In that moment of tranquility among dirt and seeds, Katherine realized that while the world around them had once seemed harsh and unforgiving, here amidst the earth's embrace lay an opportunity for renewal. A chance not just to grow food but to grow love and hope in their newly formed family. As the weeks turned into months, Katherine found herself navigating the highs and lows of this new life. While the garden flourished and moments of laughter filled their days, she often grappled with feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt. The shadows of her past still lingered, whispering reminders of the dismissive remarks from her relatives. "Dead weight," they had said, making it difficult for her to shake their judgment. One particularly overwhelming afternoon, Katherine stood in the small kitchen staring at a pile of dishes that seemed to multiply no matter how many she washed. Lila and Sam were playing outside, their joyful shouts echoing through the open window, yet inside, Katherine felt like she was drowning in chores and responsibilities. Despite the simplicity of her tasks, she felt lost, unsure if she was truly capable of creating a stable life for her children. Noticing her distress from across the yard, Ben approached gently. "You okay there?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe with an easy smile that made him seem both approachable and wise. Katherine sighed deeply before answering. "I don't know if I can keep up with everything," she admitted, vulnerability spilling over in her voice. "Some days it feels like I'm just struggling to stay afloat." Ben stepped inside and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You're doing better than you think," he reassured her. "Look at what you've created here, a home for your kids where they can laugh and play." He gestured toward the garden blooming outside, vibrant colors swaying in the breeze. But what if it's not enough? Katherine replied, glancing anxiously toward the window where her children played. She hated feeling this way but couldn't shake off the nagging doubt. Hey, Ben said firmly but kindly, capturing her attention again. Building a good life doesn't happen overnight. You're planting seeds, both in that garden and with your kids. Takes time for roots to grow strong. His words began to settle over her like a warm blanket. Katherine took a deep breath as Ben continued speaking about resilience. Every storm will pass. What matters is how you learn to stand tall afterward. She realized his insights weren't just words but a reflection of his own struggles. Here was someone who understood hardship yet radiated hope. Inspired by their conversation, Katherine started viewing her daily responsibilities as opportunities rather than burdens. She began establishing small routines that worked better for them, turning chores into games with Lila and Sam or using gardening moments to teach them about patience and care. With each passing day, Katherine grew stronger. She learned to embrace her independence while still accepting help from Ben when needed. Together they would tackle projects around the ranch, all while sharing stories about dreams and aspirations during breaks under the sun-dappled sky. As winter approached and nights grew longer, Katherine stood outside watching the moon rise while reflecting on how far they had come together since first arriving at the bunkhouse. In that moment of stillness, she understood overcoming struggles was part of life's journey. Every challenge was an opportunity for growth. With newfound confidence emerging from within her spirit, she realized that not only was she finding strength for herself but also teaching Lila and Sam essential lessons about resilience. A crucial foundation as they continued forging their path toward a brighter future together. As the days turned into weeks, Katherine's small family began to settle into their rhythm at the bunkhouse. The garden they had planted thrived under their care, and laughter often filled the air as Lila and Sam played outside. However, even as they forged a new life, Katherine couldn't shake the feeling of isolation that sometimes settled around her like a shadow. One afternoon, while she was hanging laundry outside, a figure appeared on the horizon. It was a neighbor, an older woman named Clara who lived a few properties down. Clara had heard about Katherine's situation from Ben and wanted to extend a helping hand. "I brought you some fresh bread and jam," she said cheerfully, holding out a basket filled with warm goodies. Katherine felt a rush of gratitude as she accepted the basket. "Thank you so much. This is lovely," she replied, her heart swelling with appreciation for this unexpected kindness. Clara smiled warmly, her eyes twinkling. "I thought you could use it. You're not alone in this. We all look out for each other in this community." As they chatted, Katherine learned that Clara was not only skilled in baking but also had a wealth of knowledge about gardening and cooking. They quickly found common ground and shared stories about their children. Encouraged by Clara's visit, word began to spread among neighbors about Katherine's journey. Soon after, another neighbor named Frank showed up with tools and seeds he no longer needed. "I heard you were starting a garden," he said with a grin. "Thought I'd drop these off." Katherine felt overwhelmed by the generosity surrounding her. "You really don't have to do this," she insisted. "Nonsense," Frank replied. "We help each other out here. It's what neighbors do." As more families began to contribute, offering everything from fresh produce to shared meals, Katherine realized that this sense of community was something she had never truly experienced before. It wasn't just about receiving help, it was about forming connections that filled in the gaps of loneliness. With each gesture of kindness, Katherine felt her self-doubt wane, replaced by a renewed sense of belonging. Inspired by the support around her, she invited neighbors over for potluck dinners where everyone could contribute a dish from their kitchens. Laughter and stories filled the air as they gathered together at the bunkhouse, the place that had once felt so isolated now transformed into a hub of warmth and friendship. Children played together under the stars while adults exchanged recipes and gardening tips, creating bonds that extended beyond simple neighborliness. It became clear to Katherine that her past experiences didn't define her future. Instead, she could lean on those around her during tough times. As winter approached and the air turned crisp, Katherine stood outside one evening watching snowflakes dance through the moonlit sky. She felt grateful for the love and support that had blossomed in unexpected ways since arriving at the ranch. In this little corner of the world where compassion flourished despite challenges, Katherine realized they were part of a wider tapestry, a community woven together through shared struggles and abundant kindness. With every act of generosity, she no longer felt like dead weight but rather an essential thread in this vibrant fabric of life, one that held promise and hope for brighter days ahead alongside her children and newfound friends. As the seasons changed, so did Katherine's role in the community. With her newfound connections and sense of belonging, she began to discover a renewed purpose in the kitchen. Cooking had always been a source of comfort for her, and now it became a way to express her gratitude and nurture those around her. One chilly afternoon, Katherine decided to prepare a hearty vegetable soup using produce from their garden. The aroma of simmering herbs and vegetables filled the air, wafting through the open windows and inviting curiosity from neighbors. Lila and Sam watched with wide eyes as their mother sliced carrots and stirred the pot, laughter bubbling up in their small home. "Can we help, Mommy?" Sam asked eagerly, stretching out his tiny hands to reach for a wooden spoon. "Of course. You can be my little chefs," Katherine smiled, handing them some tasks that included washing vegetables and measuring out ingredients. This simple act transformed into an enjoyable family ritual where they learned about cooking together while creating lasting memories. As evening approached, Katherine ladled the warm soup into bowls and invited Clara over for dinner. She knew Clara had been feeling under the weather lately, and this was a perfect way to show her appreciation for all the kindness she had received. When Clara arrived, Katherine greeted her with a warm smile. "This soup is made with love," Katherine said as she served Clara a steaming bowl. Clara's eyes sparkled as she took a sip. "This is delicious. You have quite the gift, Katherine." Encouraged by Clara's praise, Katherine continued to explore her culinary talents. She organized weekly potluck dinners at the bunkhouse, inviting neighbors to bring their favorite dishes. Each gathering turned into a celebration filled with laughter, shared stories, and new friendships blossoming over meals prepared with love. Word spread quickly about Katherine's delicious cooking, prompting even more people to join in these community dinners. Families gathered around tables adorned with colorful dishes, children played nearby as adults exchanged recipes and laughter. For Katherine, these moments created not just bonds between families but offered her a deep sense of fulfillment she hadn't felt in years. Not only did she find joy in feeding others, but it also became clear that her ability to care for those around her was never lost, just buried beneath layers of doubt and insecurity. With every meal shared and every satisfied smile from her neighbors, Katherine felt herself transforming into someone who truly belonged. The kitchen became a haven where creativity flourished alongside family values. Lila and Sam learned not just how to cook but also how important it was to care for one another and share what they had with others. This family dynamic strengthened as they embraced their new life together, a far cry from how they once felt dismissed as burdens. Late one night after another successful dinner party filled with camaraderie and warmth, Katherine stood by the kitchen window looking out at the moonlit garden. She reflected on how far they had come since arriving at the bunkhouse. No longer were they outcasts but rather integral members of this vibrant community woven together through compassion. In that moment of quiet reflection amidst the bustle of evening activity inside their home, it sunk in deeply. Katherine was no longer just surviving, she was thriving, finding purpose in every meal served, laughter shared, and bond formed within this beautiful tapestry of life she now embraced wholeheartedly. As Katherine continued to thrive within the community, her bond with Ben deepened each day. They often found themselves working side by side during various tasks around the ranch, whether it was fixing broken fences or tending to the garden. Each interaction was filled with easy laughter and shared glances that hinted at an unspoken connection growing between them. One afternoon, they decided to expand the garden further. While shoveling dirt and planting seeds together, Katherine felt a sense of camaraderie bloom alongside the flowers they nurtured. "Do you think this will attract more butterflies?" she asked, glancing at Ben with a playful smile. "Absolutely, and maybe even a few curious bunnies," he replied, his eyes sparkling with mischief. They both chuckled, imagining the chaos of little creatures visiting their garden oasis. In the quiet moments between tasks, their conversations grew deeper as well. They discussed their dreams and fears, sharing stories from their pasts that felt lighter when spoken aloud in the presence of someone who truly listened. Ben shared tales of his childhood spent on the ranch, filled with adventures and hard lessons learned, while Katherine revealed the struggles she faced when she was cast out by her family. With each revelation, they found solace in each other's understanding. One evening after another successful day working together, they sat on the porch steps watching the sun set behind the hills. The sky transformed into vibrant shades of purple and orange that mirrored the warmth building between them. "You know," Ben began hesitantly, "it's not just about survival anymore for me. It feels like we're building something here." Katherine nodded, feeling a surge of hope in his words. "I feel it too," she replied softly. "This place has become more than just a roof over our heads. It's a home where I can finally breathe again." Their eyes met, lingering longer than usual as they considered the possibilities of their newfound friendship. Just then, Lila and Sam ran out from inside with colorful drawings they had created earlier that day. "Look what we made!" Sam shouted excitedly, breaking their moment. Ben grinned widely as he leaned down to admire their artwork. "These are fantastic. You both have a great eye for color," he exclaimed. Katherine watched as Ben engaged with her children effortlessly, laughter spilling from them like sunshine breaking through clouds. She felt grateful not only for his help but for how naturally he fit into their lives. As weeks passed and seasons changed again, Katherine found herself thinking more about how much Ben brought to her life, how his stability and kindness helped repair not only her purpose but also her heart. The lines between friendship and something deeper began to blur, filling her with both excitement and nervousness. One night during a potluck gathering at their bunkhouse, their home now bustling with familiar faces, Katherine caught Ben watching her from across the room as she served food to their neighbors. His expression radiated warmth and admiration, causing her pulse to quicken. In that lively atmosphere filled with laughter and shared stories, Katherine realized that this connection was more than just companionship. It was a budding partnership built on trust and mutual respect, hinting at possibilities neither had yet dared to explore fully. As they worked together each day under the vast expanse of sky filled with stars at night, Katherine felt an undeniable pull towards Ben, one that promised not only companionship but an adventure ahead filled with love, just waiting to unfold amidst all that had been lost and regained in their extraordinary journey together. As spring transformed the landscape around the bunkhouse, Katherine, her children, and Ben gathered in the garden they had nurtured together. The vibrant colors of blooming flowers and the fresh green leaves swayed gently in the breeze, symbolizing not only their hard work, but also the hope they had cultivated as a family. Katherine stood with Lila and Sam on either side of her, watching as bees buzzed from flower to flower. Their laughter danced through the air like music, each sound a reminder of how far they had come from the darkness that had once enveloped their lives. With Ben beside them, she felt a sense of completeness she hadn't known was possible. "This garden is amazing," Lila exclaimed, kneeling down to touch a bright yellow flower that seemed to sway just for her. "I can't wait to see all the butterflies." Ben chuckled softly at Lila's enthusiasm. "You've both helped make it beautiful. It takes teamwork to create something special," he said, looking between the two children and then at Katherine. Katherine felt warmth spread through her chest at his compliment. Teamwork, yes, that was exactly what they had built together, a home forged through love, resilience, and shared dreams. Memories flooded her mind of planting seeds with laughter, cooking meals for neighbors who became friends, and sitting under starlit skies discussing their hopes for the future. "Who would have thought we'd turn this place into such a paradise?" she mused aloud, glancing at Ben with gratitude shining in her eyes. His presence had been transformative. He had breathed life into their struggles. "It's not just the plants, it's what you've all brought to this community," Ben replied sincerely. "You remind people of what it means to care for one another." Katherine nodded thoughtfully as she looked out over their flourishing garden. The fruits of their labor were not merely visible in flowers but also reflected in their relationships with neighbors who were now family. They stood together in this little corner of the world where kindness flourished amidst challenges. As they worked side by side tending to the plants one afternoon, Ben turned serious for a moment. "Katherine," he began slowly, "I know we've both faced our share of difficulties, but I want you to know that building this life together feels right." Her heart raced as she met his gaze. There was depth behind those words that hinted at possibilities yet unexplored. "I feel it too," she replied softly. The connection between them grew stronger with each passing day, something profound developing beneath layers of friendship. A partnership based on trust and mutual support that promised new beginnings ahead. Later that evening during dinner, a gathering filled with laughter and warmth, Katherine stood before their guests serving up hearty portions of vegetable soup made from their garden produce. As everyone enjoyed the meal she prepared with love, while sharing stories about their lives, Katherine glanced around at smiling faces filled with joy and camaraderie. In that moment, she realized her journey wasn't solely about survival anymore. It was about thriving among people who cherished love and connection just as much as she did. A community woven together through shared experiences. Standing there surrounded by those who believed in her, including Ben, Katherine felt an overwhelming surge of optimism rushing through her veins like sunlight breaking over a horizon filled with promise. This was only the beginning, an opportunity for growth not just for herself but for Lila and Sam too, as they continued forging ahead together toward brighter tomorrows filled with hope and happiness against all odds life may have thrown their way before now.